Women of Reddit, what's your story about a creepy guy following you? I was legitimately stalked my first semester of college. The guy was in my same English class. Second or third week we talk a little after class and find out that we live in different dorms, but in the same complex. Now the dorms were towers. 17 floors with 35 or so rooms per floor. Huge buildings. One day, him and his roommate show up at my door. Except I never told him which floor I lived on. So he had to go to each floor and try to find me. He then proceeds to come into my room while my roommate and I are doing work and lays on the floor. Finally his friend tells him he's being weird and that they should go. Then he started just sitting outside my dorm room. I would come back from class and he would be there, just sitting and waiting. He would leave notes on the whiteboard that he just wanted me to read his essay for class. He just wanted to talk to me. Why wouldn't I give him a chance? Question mark? Question mark? He then started sending me creepy song lyrics over MySpace about how he was going to burn down the dorm to get me to have to leave my room. I printed those up and got my English teacher involved, a lovely grad student who luckily was a women's advocate. She got her supervisor involved. My teacher started walking with me to my next class, all the way on the other side of a very large campus. He followed us the whole way, even when we made detours to the bathroom or to get coffee. Finally the teacher had us write a note to our favorite study spot. Kinda weird, but whatever. He wrote about sitting outside my door, how he felt powerful when he knew I was trapped inside, and even put my room number and other identifiable stuff in it that ended up getting turned over to the university, in addition to the song lyrics. And there was a whole hearing with myself, my roommate, and some others having to give statements. Unfortunately they never told me what happened, but he wasn't at the school the next semester. The next year, his roommate happened to be in one of my classes. Very first day he comes up to me and says that there's no hard feelings for what you did to my friend. Asshole. Very first day he comes up to me and says that there's no hard feelings for what you did to my friend. What the actual duck? Question mark? He got a different story than us. One about all the effort put into making Hysteria 878 feel so special. This one probably isn't as bad as other people's, but here we go. Mandatory mobile disclaimer. In my freshman year of high school, I walk to my regular lunch table spot and there's a kid we don't know sitting there. No biggie. I assume he's friends with somebody else at the table. He strikes up a conversation with me, saying I look familiar. He asks my grade, my middle school, and elementary school. We went to the same middle school, but he was a senior, so we wouldn't have gone at the same time. He asks about elementary school, so I give my school and we went to different schools and I talk about how crappy mine was, and he says, oh, can I give you a hug because you went to a crappy elementary school? I'm caught off guard, so I give him a hug anyway. I ask around the table and no one knew him. He keeps showing up for a few days, but we ignore him and only speak to him when spoken to, leaving a seat between us, etc. But the really creepy part is at one point he came to my history class for yearbook interviews and wanted a boy and a girl. I was literally the only kid with my hand down and he chose me and my male friend. He takes us out in the hall separately. My friend first. He says we need to do 2 interviews with different endings. One with a handshake and one with a hug. I do both, not knowing better. First thing I did when I came back to class was ask my friend if he did the hug. He said no. After chatting with my friends about it for a bit, I remember yearbook kids can access schedules. I only gave this kid my first name too. I tell my history teacher about it, and he said hell mail this kid's yearbook teacher. Kid left me alone after that, but I still made my friend pretend to be my boyfriend when I saw him around. Edited to make paragraph spaces. I knew a guy like this who didn't go so far on the stalking, and some girls really liked the attention. He was clingy and weird, some halfway between creepy and desperate. Most sensible girls would ignore him. He asked or prompted for a hug, and others thought it made him cool and relatable. Just being seen around him gave you a scarlet letter. One time I was walking in my neighborhood It was evening in the early fall and living up north the sun sets faster than you'd expect. A car pulled up next to me and said, "Hey, need a ride or something?" I said no and kept walking, but he rolled next to me trying to get my attention until a car pulled up behind him and he had to drive off. I thought I was in the clear, so I kept hurrying home. But he just pulled around the block and rolled next to me again, this time saying things like "come with me" and "I wanna FCKU." I was 14 or so and didn't have a phone and couldn't see anyone else outside to go to for help. So I kept walking until another car made him pull away again. Worried he'd come back, I dashed down a side road and hid between some cars for maybe 10 minutes hoping he'd give up and I could make it home. I was the kind of kid that always carried a pocket knife, so I opened it, slipped it up my sleeve in case I needed it in a hurry. If I was smart I would have picked a random house and gone there for help. But the closed doors seemed just as scary as the guy in the car. Eventually I started heading home again and was half a block from my house when guess who pulled up? But he didn't have more than a couple seconds before he had to move on for another car. I waited until he had rounded a corner before I ran the rest of the way home and got the door safely locked behind me. OMG, extremely similar thing happened to me at that age too, but it turned into a pursuit on foot after he'd followed me to a field and got out of his car and tried to get me. Holy caroli, some people are terrifying. I had a guy get off the subway and follow me off. I was on the phone with my parents at the time, but regardless of that, he kept telling me I was beautiful and trying to talk to me, and he insisted he would walk me home. I said no, but he kept insisting, which made me worried. So I said I had to stop in a store for cat food. I then called my boyfriend from within the store and he came to get me. We saw the guy cross the street and get back on the subway, just proving he got off the subway specifically to follow me. God, that's creepy as hell. If I was you, I'd be scared too. I always trust my gut. If I feel like something's off, I do something about it. Always rather be safe than sorry. When I was 16, my parents took me on a cruise and let me wander around Nassau on my own. Yeah, bad decision on their part. A creepy guy from the cruise followed me around while I was going through Nassau. I noticed him decently quickly and took a few random turns to see if he was indeed following me. I happened to run into a few other teens from the cruise, and two of them, traveling with their family, let me hang out with their group until we went back to the ship. The older guy mentioned to me there was a creepy guy that seemed to be following me, and I let him know that I was aware and trying to lose him. Obviously freaked out a bit, and he was nice enough to pretend to be dating me for the guy to back off. I will forever be grateful to him and his family. Sadly, we never did keep in touch. I will never forget his name or what he did for a stranger that day. I might be alive because of his actions. I was walking through the downtown area of our city and I accidentally made eye contact with this dude who was clearly unhinged. He started following us, muttering to himself about how he wanted to take me home. He followed us for a few blocks before he got bored and wandered off. I was terrified. My husband didn't notice the guy until I told him after the dude left. Fuck, that's intense. Had to catch a bus downtown one night after work and walked home in the dark. A group of guys called down to me from their rooftop party, clearly drunk, and I ignored them. 5 minutes later, one of them came up next to me on a bicycle, said to me in a sing-song voice, "Those don't look like running shoes to me. Aren't you afraid of getting raped?" I was wearing flat sandals. This was a time before cell phones. I was terrified, but didn't know what to do. I kept walking straight ahead, keys in my hand ready to defend myself, and did not acknowledge him. He eventually laughed and went back to his group. When he was safely behind me, I ran the rest of the way home and sobbed. Fuck that dude. That's terrifying. I don't drink, but I frequented the bar by my house, pre-COVID, just to meet my neighbors, so to speak. I knew almost everyone there. It's a small bar tucked in a shopping strip type thing behind a standalone restaurant. My friend who brought their dogs to the bar asks me to watch them while he runs into the bar to get a drink. While in watching his dog, a man I've never met before or seen at the bar asks me if the dogs are mine. I'll let him know they are not and that they are my friend's dogs. That's it. All he said. All I said. He walked away and I went about my business. 2 AM rolls around and the bar is closing. I say my goodbyes and head to my car, parked on the other side of the Mexican restaurant, out of sight of the bar. Dumb I know, but there was no other parking. I'm sitting in my car looking for the right song when I feel someone watching me. It's the man who asked about the dogs motioning to me from his car. I crack the window to hear what he wants because I'm not yet too scared, but I'm cautious. He asks me what am I about to do? Where am I going? Do I want to go home with him? Can he come home with me? To which I reply to all his questions, no, absolutely not. Now, I'm on edge. I figure I'll let him back out and leave the parking lot first so he can't follow me. He doesn't. It's a stalemate. We are sitting there for way too long. The parking lot is becoming more and more empty and I don't want to be left here with him staring at me through the window. So I pull out in a direction that I'd pull out behind his car and grab his plate number in my head. I keep repeating it over and over in my head just in case. He pulls out behind me. We leave the parking lot and hit the first light. I tell myself not to panic, anyone leaving this bar has to hit this light and he could go any direction. He takes a left after me. Next light we come up on I make it thought, but he doesn't. However, my turn for my neighborhood is right after that light and he will see me turn in from there. So I keep driving, and luckily I live 2 more lights down from the police station for my district. I pull into the parking lot for a few minutes and turn back around and head to the gas station near my house to get gas for the morning. As I'm pulling into the gas station, Hez pulling out. Fuck me right. Should waited longer. I pull into a parking spot and watch my mirror as he flips around and comes back to the gas station and pulls into the spot next to me. I'm already in reverse and I leave out the side entrance to the gas station and go down to the road I was just on. I'm waiting at the light to turn left and I can see him at the entrance that meets the road I'm turning left on. Hez just sitting there at the gas station exit waiting for me. He could have pulled out a trillion times. There were no cars. My lights turn green and I make my left and he pulls out in front of me and goes really slow. It clicked. He did this so I'd pass him and it wouldn't be suspicious that he was following me because I'm the one that passed him. Right? Wrong. I said duck it, let's go dude, and passed him. I drive down the road using my turn signals each time I needed to. Drive nice and slow. Make sure to not lose him at any of the lights. I turn down a side street. Hez behind me. I turn into the police station parking lot, look in my rear view mirror, and watch him gas it down a 25 miles per hour residential neighborhood because at that point he knew I knew. As soon as I parked I cried my eyes out. Entire time I was calm, collected, and aware as I could be, but as soon as he was gone I was a hysterical mess. A volunteer patrol officer, retired police officer that still wants to be busy, found me and took me inside where I gave them the accurate license number and the make, model and generation of his vehicle. They ran the plates and confirmed the plates met my description. So yay for my memory finally working for me. Close bracket. I was actually surprised about how the whole thing was handled. I was surprised they would do a report, even though nothing illegal technically happened, I don't think. I'm surprised they didn't question if the hysterical woman crying uncontrollably was drunk or lying. They even had a patrol car follow me to my house and wait outside for me to check each one of my rooms for an intruder. Props to the police department for going the extra mile to watch you once you got home. I was in Walmart looking at duffel bags. Some guy came up to me and asked me the time. I told him and he thanked me but continued to hang around. It was obvious he was pretending to look at things, just randomly picking them up and putting them down and looking at me from the side. It made me uncomfortable, so I grabbed a random bag and walked to another part of the store to get some toothpaste. I wandered around for a bit, paid and walked to my car. I didn't see him after I left the duffel bag aisle, so I let my guard down as it was about 30 minutes later. I walked to my car and as I was climbing in the driver's seat, the same guy appeared out of nowhere. This guy followed me around Walmart and out into the parking lot to my car. He put his arm on my open door and stood in front of me so I couldn't leave or close my door. He then proceeded to tell me how he thought my body was gorgeous and introduced himself. I simply stated I'm married. He responded with, well, let's talk. I continued to say no without trying to anger him. He kept saying how he thought my body was gorgeous and continued to ask if I wanted to duck. After a few minutes he eventually walked away. That entire situation terrified me because it could have gone a completely different way. Please click subscribe if you enjoyed this video.